This is Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. On the show, you'll hear from innovators in the food space. We'll have disruptive conversations with people from around the globe who are taking the lead on topics like food sustainability, ending world hunger, food security, and so much more. I'm your host, Paul Newnham. In this episode, we're diving into the world of radical inclusion with the multifaceted Mark Brand. As an entrepreneur, educator, facilitator, and chef, Mark unites his diverse expertise to create environments that embody radical inclusion. In today's conversation, Mark explains what that means. You'll hear Mark explain what it means to have a radically inclusive space and why that's important. We'll discuss his journey up until now, and Mark will also share some valuable insights into driving sustainability forward. Let's get into it. Mark,
Yes,
welcome
sir.
to the show.
Great to be here, man. Thank you.
So, you describe yourself as an entrepreneur, educator, facilitator, and chef. Help me understand how these roles come together.
I think they are all one title. I think whenever you talk about somebody's jobs, you have to make it the most digestible and understandable for all circles. So wherever people touch me in the Venn diagram, they have to understand, right? So all of that is a simple way to say I am a convener. So what my main role is building spaces of radical inclusion. So places where people can feel welcome. Of course, adjacent to that is to be nourished. So where can you get fed and understand and learn things? And where can we have conversations exactly like this? So I've been building brick and mortar spaces for almost 20 years. Those come in the form of restaurants, galleries, small sushi bars, large music venues. And in the last 7 or 8 years, that's all pivoted towards only social impact-based stuff. And so when I say that, it's not like we take 1% of profits and we have a 99% business that does capitalism. It's these businesses are directly built to impact stakeholder and place. So one example is I've taken over a 1957 butcher shop on Hastings Street, the famous 100 block of Hastings, which is the largest open-air drug market in North America, one of the densest areas of homelessness and mental illness. And I've operated there since 2009, a food incubator or hub. So that's jargon, but to the exterior, very much like the titles, it looks like a full-service food window that helps people who are street entrenched with food or anybody else who wants to purchase for $5 a fresh meal every day. A commissary kitchen that does about 2,000 to 3,000 meals a day for folks living either street entrenched in SROs, single room occupancy hotels, transitional shelters, and also for youth, culinary education, and then an event space, all attached in this old hacked space. And so all of those roles fit in there. Can educate the people I work with, people who come in, the haves, you could say, who come in for our events and get to experience Hastings Street and understand that it's not all people on the corner with the dog and the yellow mustache and the sign, that it's families who are food insecure, and trying to imbue upon them that this is our responsibility. So I build spaces like that. And then the rest of the time I travel and run into you all over the world, and we do stuff together, whether it's dinners or talks, and help people understand what it looks like in action. And you and I talk about this a lot, but there's a difference in book smart in today's world or actually having put hands on tools and coming from it day to day. And that's where you and I fall on the spectrum, is a little bit of both. We learn stuff from our smarter friends.
Absolutely, absolutely. So going backwards a little bit, and we're going to dig into some of these areas because there's huge learning and insight. So we're in Vancouver, Canada. Tell us a little bit about your journey to get to this point. So like you've landed in the space you're in, but just let's rewind a little bit.
Yeah, happy to.
Where did you start?
Sure. And you and I are sitting on unceded Musqueam territory right now, but Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh is the majority of the bands that are on the territories that I operate in. And I ended up in Vancouver in 2004. After doing 10 years in Australia, in Melbourne. My dad got transferred to Melbourne. I was raised in my formative years in Nova Scotia and crossing back and forth to Nigeria in my teenage years. And
that's why I like you, I think.
That's it. Yeah, it's the Australian part. I've learned to understand and tolerate the humor just a sidebar, as a polite Canadian kid, well, semi-polite, I arrive in Australia and get my first job cooking breakfast at the Hotel Grand Chancellor in Chinatown. And I'm the doorman of the Frigate Bar in the evenings as well. So I'm switching back and forth and basically sleeping on banquettes. And the ribbings that I took in my first sort of 3 or 4 months, I was like, why does everybody hate me? why do all Australians
That's how
hate
people
me?
love you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It took me a while to learn. And then I fell in love with the country. So 10 years there, get diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease. And the Australian government said, we'd love you to stay if you pay for all your medical bills for the rest of your life. So dialysis is very expensive and I have to leave. At that point, I'd actually worked my culinary career into front of house as well and been doing a lot of that and into the DJ world. So I was playing funk, soul, rap, and doing tours in Australia and in Asia, and essentially attained my dream job. I remember being working in a place called Bennigan's on Chapel Street, and I was a busser there, big Greek restaurant, and then DJs would come in Friday, Saturday night, and I would see them play and be like, I want that job. Like, you get to control the energy of the entire room, and also you get paid way more than I do. You make more in a night than I do in a week, so I want that gig. And Australia was awesome for that. Like, it's really a place to show and prove. So I got to work my way up and spent time there. So I get diagnosed. I come back to Canada and I'm trying to figure out where I'll be. And it's not Nova Scotia. After being in Melbourne, which is one of the 5 greatest cities in the world, as far as I'm concerned, it's hard to go backwards. And I came to Vancouver and saw that there was like a bubbling scene in culinary, but also a bubbling scene in the arts. And then experienced the downtown east side for the first time and spent a few nights there at some after parties. I was like, this is a very special place, and decided to plant my flagpole here. So went back to work in culinary, ended up actually being a bar manager at a restaurant here locally called Shambar that was in their inception, and they were just the toast of the town, and got behind the bar there and became bartender of the year that year. It was the first time they gave that award in Vancouver, which was fun for me, and it shot my career through the roof here. So it really established me as somebody who understood how to pair flavors, to really do remarkable service and spend time with customers. And I just love people. So again, back to the convening part. So from there, leveraged that into my first restaurant named after my mom, which happened to be a block off of Hastings Street in the downtown east side. And it was in Gastown, a neighborhood that at that time was right on the cusp of gentrification. So I became an unwitting partner in gentrification when I didn't even know that was a bad word. And from there, just by osmosis, like working with people in the street, seeing people every day, living in that neighborhood, I got impacted into a way that there must be something bigger. And we're talking 06, 07 now. And so there must be a bigger role for culinary, for chefs, for restaurateurs, for people in service. Because when I'm watching people clock off their shifts or they're having a smoke on the side of the building, they're interacting with the neighborhood. They love, they care. And we witness this all over the world, right? When you see somebody who's homeless or marginalized or otherwise struggling, you're going to see service people interact quicker. They have big hearts. They're about it. And so trying to tie together what that would look like. Fast forward a few years, I opened a cocktail bar, I opened a gallery, I opened a bunch of other things. All scratch made, no investors, just great partners and having fun, low rents, early meatpacking district type of vibe. And so we've done all of these things and I still feel quite hollow. You know, I'm like, what's my role here? Aside from putting my friends on, which is a very powerful role, adding to the culinary community, powerful role, but I felt like there was something bigger for me. And a place that I had used to frequent was called Save On Meats on Hastings Street. Institution, 21,000 square foot butcher shop, place of food security, but the guy who ran it had no idea what that meant. 5'2" Al Delorier, legendary guy, and it was a dear friend. And he came to me, I was actually in my retail store one day sitting with my best friend at the time, and he was like, hey, I'm thinking about retiring. And I'm like, oh my God, that's gonna be such a giant loss for everybody. Like, this is a place, but particularly for the community. So what are you going to do with the space? And he's like, well, somebody wants to buy it, but I'm not going to sell it until somebody agrees to take over the butcher shop. And I said, nobody's that stupid. Al, come on. Like, it's the block is the block. And who needs a 5,000 square foot butcher shop right now? And he's like, well, I thought you might be interested. I said, not only am I not interested, I'm leveraged. I'm building 2 things across the street. I'm renovating another restaurant. And he said, well, I'd like you to think about it because I've already talked to your wife and a couple other people. And so I went home, my ex-wife, bless her, and I had a quick conversation. And I was like, so about this project. And she said, I feel like you've talked to me already about Save On and how you would love to at some point take it over. There's no harm in trying to scope it out. And I think when ever a project comes across your desk that's supposed to happen, it will happen. And a dear friend of mine wrote me a check for $225,000 and was like, leverage this into the rest of the debt. We built Save On, did an Oprah Winfrey reality show while we were doing it. It became this huge conversation in the country about what should happen, equally as polarizing. So as many people as loved it, lots of people didn't. Lots of people didn't like me as a personality and as a character. And that sort of cemented for me when I would go to work there. We're deeply in debt. Now, the business didn't make any sense, but I loved it. And it felt amazing. And I had boundless energy for it, even though we weren't doing well. So the barrier employment programs that we started, employing people who have traditional barriers to getting employed, recidivism rap sheets, mental health issues, et cetera, the struggles amongst that, people dying, all of the things that come around starting a social impact business with no training because there is no training for it. And that's kind of how we got to, let's call it 2013, 2012. And from there, that was it for me. It cemented it. So anything else that I've done since then has been either a kitchen that is built and based off that archetype to serve people who need it. And waste recovery is a big thing for us, you know? And so the rest of that is, there's lots of thousands of side stories, but that's really it.
I mean, Save-On is such an iconic location, but it's also in a space which is very challenging. For people that aren't aware of the challenges in that community, why is that community and that space so impacted, and what does that look like to operate there? Because it's not a small feat to be able to even operate in that space.
Yeah, and so I guess to paint the picture for everybody listening, if they're on the US side or been to Skid Row or to the Mission Tenderloin in San Francisco, you know, you have this dense street homelessness, right? And so encampments are rampant, lots of tents, lots of people set up street marketing, and it's an entirely different community. And it's my favorite community in our city. So, you know, I say I feel safer nowhere but there. I wouldn't go to the bar strip of Granville Street. I feel very unsafe there. I feel very safe in the downtown east side, as most people who get it do. But visibly, to do business there is very hard, particularly since the opioid epidemic hit. And fentanyl, we could do an entire discussion about that, but is a completely different drug. And so while people were using methamphetamines, crack cocaine, heroin, those sorts of things, the downtown east side is also one of the largest open-air drug markets. And to say that is to say that we've decriminalized possession under 5 grams for pretty much everything. And you will not be arrested for openly injecting or smoking drugs because obviously people are having real serious issues, and that's not the solution. And so that's the area we operate in, is this market and a dense area of homelessness and encampments and people that we love. And so to operate a business there was really interesting more than it was just challenging. Like operating any restaurant in this climate anywhere in the world is impossible right now. But doing it there, it had to be this hybridized model of we're in service to, I also have a charity that's a sister attachment called the Better Life Foundation that operates. And so we do some funding for some programming, and it's really all hands on deck. If I was to say I'm just going to open a classic diner there again now, I mean, you really couldn't do it. But to be in service to that community also looks after us. Like you'll see no vandalism, you'll see no break-ins, like we're protected. And there's a lot to say about that. It's being really, truly intrinsically part of your community. And that's the apex example, right?
Yeah,
You can wind that back.
No. But I mean, I think for people to understand, I think it's 2.4 million meals you've served and counting.
We're almost 5, actually.
Almost 5.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we're going to be
I'm
5.
sure I got that off your website. Your website's behind,
It's dated, man. We've been too busy working. If you get a good web guy, gal, or person, please send them my way. If you're listening, please come say hello.
Okay, so 5 million.
Almost 5 million meals, yeah. And I mean, cumulatively, we would be 5, including the East Coast. We just launched our Halifax kitchen in June. So we'd be 5 million now.
Okay, so this is serious scale over a period. It's not just to go in and solve a problem for 6 months or a year. This is like living in the community, supporting the community, employing and working with the community, and loving the community. What's some of the learnings that you've had through that, just about life, and that maybe you would be telling somebody who's thinking about how do they build community and serve community in that way?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that want to come pouring out because we're still constantly in it, right? So, I'll use the new Halifax kitchen for example. I'm from Dartmouth, I say, right? I grew up there 9 to 19, and so I feel like I'm from that community, even though I haven't been there for a long time. But it's such a tight-knit community. We always say when you're developing social impact projects, it's not like, will this city is Buffalo like Nova Scotia, like Ontario? It's not even just the cities, it's the community or the neighborhood, and it gets as tight as to the block. So designing something for impact, you have to look at that literal block in a city and say, who are the players? Who are the good actors, bad actors? What does it look like? Who are the logical partnerships? What state are they in? Are they able to contribute? Are you cutting their lawn? Like, what does that look like? And it's such serious game. It's so much different than the simplicity of opening a restaurant and saying, I've got 18 extra seats in the neighborhood and I'm doing a better job, so therefore we're going to have those covers and it's fine. It's really ABC math and makes restaurants, which are the hardest business in the world, look easy again. The complexity of this, the polarization of it, the politicization of all of it, the conversations that you have to have. And we're talking about just getting food to people because it's so charged. These topics are immediately when you start to talk about them, people feel guilt. And guilt is obviously, it comes out as anger. So you're in these conversations all the time that are so charged. And I'm like, look, I'm just trying to get chicken and waffles to people who are living in tents right now. Like, I'm saying that we're doing it wrong, but I'm not pointing the finger directly at you. And so I spend a good 70% of my time now in meetings with politicians, political aides, people who are running nonprofits to let them know how safe we are versus like we're going to say that to people entering this field because it is so much deeper and bigger than your good intentions. You know, your good intentions will definitely carry you the first few years and you'll make money out of nowhere and magic will happen and your community will support you directly. But as a long haul game, we're 15 years in now, it really requires incredible business savvy to be able to make this thing sustainable or any of these sorts of things sustainable because government rotates, your popularity rotates, people change constantly, but you can never disappoint a population that you've started to serve. So it's really the onus is on you to continue. So I say all this not to scare people, but just to say it's incredibly serious. And I think people enter the nonprofit or the charitable world with a like, you know, we'll just do kind of a Tom Shoes models and we'll one for one some stuff and it'll be great. It's like, it's so deep. It's so deep. And our friend, I think, have you met Kennedy O'Day?
Yep.
Okay. Kennedy is incredible. And he tells the story of somebody coming to his village and offering him and his brother shoes. And we're talking about the largest slum on the planet in Uganda. And him saying, I'll take the shoes, and then being like, I didn't need shoes. And so that simple example is the backbone of what's wrong. And then you have to think about all the other external pressures, which are you can't have more than 10% operating costs if you're doing stuff. Otherwise, you're under scrutiny, which is the most insane thing in the world. Yeah. And shout out the film Uncharitable and my buddy Stephen Gyllenhaal, like watch the film. Charity needs to change. The way we look and perceive about it, the entire way we interact with it has to change. So those are all the cautionary tales, and I've got 1,000 more. But for each one of those I've got 10 instances of how we've impacted somebody's life in a meaningful way that would be enough. Like if you can help one person significantly in this world, you've done your job, I think. But if you can help thousands or hundreds, it's a task worth doing, particularly in this climate.
Absolutely. So I just want to ask, what's one thing that you've been challenged by in the last year? So you've been in this journey for a while, but what's something that's really challenging you at the moment?
My ego. Oh man. Just when I think I've got like control of my reactions, you know, I really genuinely have, I've been ripped in the media multiple times through my career and lauded 10 more. So it's not like it's a consistent issue. It's just it's hard to bite your tongue in situations, right? Particularly when you're aware of solutions. And not like you and I had a whiteboard and hung out for an afternoon and we figured a few things out. It's I got 15 years every single day doing this. So we've got some really robust solutions. And I think my ego gets the better of me still in my reaction. So when I say that anger portion, that's my ego will come out and speak in that sort of harsh and hushed like tone of, I feel responsible for the population that I'm in service to and speaking often. And so if I'm in a room with government, with multiple stakeholders, and I feel like there's a disrespectful tone towards people that I'm in service to, I find it very tough to control myself. And so I've had a lot of challenges with that in the last 6 months. Whereas during the pandemic, I don't know, maybe because I was microdosing mushrooms more often, like I was a little more chill when we were on multiple, Zooms together or when we were on Clubhouse and wherever we were speaking together, I found it easier to just accept what is. And I find myself at this point boiling over pretty consistently. Not in a way that's disruptive, but more in a way it's disruptive to me internally, I think. And yeah, I think that would be a challenge that I face more often than not right now. And I feel myself almost feeling a little bit of shame about that, which is interesting for me. I think you hope as you get older, I'm 48 this year, that those fires will start to like level out. But maybe on the flip side of that, those fires are necessary.
I think sometimes, in my own experience, that is important to be aware of, but it's also that kind of passion, and it's better to be going that way a little bit than probably under. So if there's somebody keen to get into making an impact in this space, what advice would you give them as they're getting started? Like before they get started, maybe even, like what would you say to them?
The number one thing I would share is what do you love most? Like, what do you care about most? I think we're a derivative of the champagne socialist in this world right now, where we have all these social media things telling us what we should care about. And you and I were talking about conflicts. And, of course, Gaza's the number one thing on everybody's tongue right now, but you and I have been internationally based for 30 years. So we've seen Gaza-style conflicts all over the world so often. And so people are really charged about certain issues because they absolutely need to be, make no mistake. But find the thing that actually, if you can get quiet enough with yourself and ask yourself why you care about something and just keep asking why, almost until you feel like you're going to be blue in the face. Yeah. So for me, I would get asked why in the peak of our popularity, why we were doing Save On. I'd say, because it needs to be done. Because I actually didn't have a good answer. I was like, because somebody has to. One of those flippant things. And the fact of the matter is I was raised by strong women who cared a lot about their community. My mother, rest her, my aunt, who was also a cook, rest her, they always cared, like, God forbid there was a stray cat on the street, that kind of level of care, right? So I was raised around that kind of care and care for community. And then also an understanding that your superpower, whatever it is that you do really, really great, I happen to be very good in the kitchen and also good at convening people. I had strayed from that in business, and that's why I felt hollow. Like, I was a great business person. It was very easy for me to do things. I didn't take high risks. I took low risks. We did a lot of art-based stuff, and so it was really fun to do, and I was successful at it, but it didn't fill me in any way. And so I decided to go back in the kitchen in 2012 or 2013, and nobody knew me as a cook. And everybody's like, you're not a chef. So I had to throw a bunch of dinners to show people that I could cook, because I learned when I was 14 cooking pizza and kept cooking. So going back into something that I cared deeply about also set me up for people actually like making fun, et cetera. And so I think this is a very important part of the story or the advice is don't be afraid of what other people think about your choice, whatever that decision may be, because the right people will gravitate towards it. The wrong people will go where they need to go. And so find something that you're really good at because you'll feel confident in it and you'll feel comfortable in it. And then figure out where that intersects, where the Venn diagram is for the cause that you care about the same. So for you, I mean, we could write your Venn diagram over and over and over again, right? And you know where food intersects with systems and systems design and food design. So you know what you're great at. And you might have been like, oh, I thought I was going to swing the knife my whole career. Well, we don't swing the knife as often anymore. I do it 10, 12 times a year because the other stuff is my superpower right now. So whatever's going to get me to that impact. And so for an individual to say, you know what, I make great soup. Good friend of mine, Russell, out of New York, is doing soup right now, and he used to be in advertising and media, decided he wanted to be a cook. He's an incredible cook. Changed his entire thing. He was like, I'm just going to do this. Incredibly successful at it because passion has its own language and frequency. Love has its own language and frequency. So if you're doing those things, you will be successful in a matter of time. So if you put that along with impact, particularly now, there's no question that you'll be successful and feel better about it. Now, it might not be the success that we're looking for on Instagram, but it's a different kind of success.
No, absolutely. So 2 more questions. One is, what's next?
So I am heavily focused on school food. Okay. I started working on school food in about 2015, dabbling in it in the early 2010s, doing some stuff with some local groups. And then 2016, 17, worked with the San Francisco Unified School District to reimagine school food. I did design thinking for quite some time and did a year at the D School at Stanford studying design thinking. And as a fellow there, a civic innovation fellow, learned all those skills which we have. And so looking at systemic change within school food and how many generations it would take to right the ship on all levels. And we're sitting, interestingly enough, in a very big school, and we're going to spend time here today, but what they're doing and what Sid's doing here at SFU is fantastic. Like, it's really, really important stuff. And the thought and effort that goes into it is palatable. Kids are smarter than us. I work a lot with like 6 to 10 to 12-year-olds in cooking camps and in service to them in school food programming on the East Coast. That's where my focus is going to continue to go. We'll continue to work in triage with people who are unhoused everywhere. We'll continue to work with families who are struggling everywhere for the rest of my life. But my main focus in design and building kitchens is going to be in and around being service to school food, specifically within Canada right now, because there's a lot of political will. So if we can get kids nourished every day and they can get their education up and they can feel strong and solid at home and in their growth and safe because of it, that's a task well worth taking on.
Absolutely. So a little bit of a pivot, but what are you loving eating at the moment?
Oh man, I just got back from Japan. I'm not going to shut up about it all day. Bro, I ate so much ramen. Like since you saw me last, like I went up a full pant size. I am so enamored with Japanese cooking. Always have been. Owned a sushi restaurant, owned a ramen restaurant. Like so enamored with it. And I can say, no, I didn't, by the way. After being in Japan for 2 weeks, no, I didn't. Like, yes, I did. No, I didn't. Their attention to detail, their attention to flavor, just the execution is so beyond. And I've got 3 dinners coming up, one in Boston in a couple of weeks. And I'm pivoting almost the entire menu. I'm like, no, we're going this way. It doesn't align with the event at all. But I'm like, I want to do this thing. So I think it's restraint. And I'm really impressed by good ingredients again. Like just that one slice of romaine that's so sweet you can't believe it. Like I'm obsessed again into ingredients versus final product.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Man, my absolute pleasure. So great to see you.
You've been listening to Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. Future Fork is produced by Disruptive Consulting Solutions and supports the SDG2 Advocacy Hub. For more info, head to the website futureforkpodcast.com. This show was produced with strategy and production support from Wavelength Creative. So you don't miss an episode of Future Fork, make sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Paul Newnham, and I'll see you in the next episode.